Hey everyone, Sectors here. Recently, Josh Tiong released his debut album, which is a project that I've been anticipating for a while now. Where the River Flows is a noticeable stylistic shift from his recent output. This album does not have any autumn Josh Tiong remixes or heading aways, but that doesn't mean it's not worth your time. A lot of you watching will probably be familiar with Josh's output on Psyduck, and I would say the most similar track from there would be Thunderdance, the more guitar-focused take on his earlier track, Rain Dance. But that's enough of comparisons, let's just get straight into the album. First up, we have From Rivers, which is a calm intro piece that does a wonderful job of setting up what this album is going to be. The watery ambience and pretty chords present in this track let you know that this is going to be more of an atmospheric experience. The arpeggio-ish melody here kind of reminds me of the next track, Motionless Wave, but I'm not really sure if that's intended. Speaking of Motionless Wave, this track was the first single from the album. It ended up getting delayed a bit because the sub-bass wasn't loud enough, and honestly, I still think it's not quite loud enough, but it's definitely improved from the original version. Josh sings in this one, and his voice sounds quite nice and fits the overall mood of the album well. The melody here is quite catchy, and it is pretty obvious why this one was chosen as a single. Personally, I wish the song had a little bit more impact. It doesn't have as much oomph as I really hoped it would, but apart from that, it's a great song, and it's definitely a worthy single. Following Motionless Wave, we have Little Droplets, which is very beautiful. The sample usage here is great, from the ambience, the watery ambience as before, and like the distant talking of people. They just really create a great atmosphere here. The melody and instrumentation here, they're just really beautiful and calming. Reflections is next. This one has more of a focus on the drum beat, and it's like a wonderful mixture of energetic yet laid back. There's some great sample usage here. Again, there's the chants, like the woo, that weird woo noise. I love that. They would just work very well in this song. I'm also a sucker for arpeggios, and the second half of this song has a really great one. Estuary is a short interlude that is very pretty and combines the ambience of Reflections with the melodic elements of Staying Awake. If anything, I just wish it was its own full track, because it builds up like so nicely, but the transition into Staying Awake is just not done quite right. It's kind of awkward, and either I just wish that Estuary was a full song or just transition better, because I'm not sold on the transition. Staying Awake is the second and last single from this album, and this is another obvious single pick. This is more focused on Josh's calm vocals, but is complemented wonderfully by the production. Both the vocals and the melody of this track are quite catchy. The oohs in this track they sound great. This is easily one of my favorites from the entire album. Gushing Currents took me by surprise. The first half of this album was more laid back, but Gushing Currents is fast-paced with a great vocal melody. Or at least I think it's vocals, I don't know. But Josh provides some solid vocals here, and obviously great production as usual. This is probably the most electronic-leaning track on this album, with that, what I think is vocal melody, and the fast-paced drop. I don't know what you'd call it, but it's definitely more electronic-leaning, yet still a very accessible track, I would say. To Be Alive is another surprising track. This one puts the vocals and the verses in the forefront, more so than some of the other tracks. The drops of this song have a wonderfully catchy melody played by a great-sounding brassy synth. This is probably the most poppy-sounding track of all of them here, and it would have been a great single contender. This is a huge standout of the album. Sometimes is a pretty vocal-focused track with some simple and repetitive backing. The guitar repeats throughout the entire track, but the track has some very beautiful progression in the second half, adding like more pads and some sparkly synths, and it builds so well. Like what easily could have been a like filler track is just transformed into a progressive journey, and I really commend Josh for that. I also just really like the vocal processing here on this one in particular. Deeper Waters concludes the album in a similar fashion to how it started, with the same melody as From Rivers. It seems to be building tension into some big climax to end the album, but instead it just fades out to a more chill section, and eventually it ends. It may seem disappointing that that's how the album ends, but to me it seems quite fitting. The album didn't really have any huge climaxes throughout its duration, but rather, beautiful, laid-back, melodic pieces. And I think this album just ends off in the perfect way. Where the River Flows is an absolute masterpiece, and I am blown away by what Josh was able to deliver here. The fact that he has so much talent and yet is so unknown just baffles me. Josh's talent is on full display in this album, and I really hope it gets the recognition it deserves, because this is an amazing album. I'm giving this a 9 out of 10, which is an amazing score for any artist, let alone someone as small as Josh. I really can't wait to see what he does next. He has so much potential, and this is a huge showcase of it. But yeah, thank you for watching, and please do yourself a favor and listen to this album. Links in the description. See ya.